What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit. A look at the Samsung Galaxy S666 Active. It's kind of the third generation of the Active series, released in the US. Now it's basically an S6 that has a unique external design, Now for the most part, this has identical specs to the standard Galaxy S6. The same 5.1-inch Quad HD Super AMOLED display with a pixel density of 596. Same Corning Gorilla Glass 4 front glass. We have the same 16 megapixel camera on the back, 4K and optical image stabilization. The same 5 megapixel camera on the front.
With 1080p at 30 frames per second.
With the Mali T760 GPU. The difference here is that we only have 32 gigs of internal storage standard. There isn't an upgrade model like 64 or 100 on the standard GS666. Find some paperwork explaining music service. We also get Samsung's adaptive, which quickly charges the battery. Also included in the box is a micro USB 2.0 cable. Unfortunately, we do not get a set of headphones. And just like the standard GS6 Active also integrates wireless charging, which supports both wireless Qi and the Power Mat standard. Now there are a couple standout differences between the GS6 and the GS666 Active. The biggest one is the battery. So in terms of the capacity on the GS666 Active, it's almost 1,000 milliamp hours more than the standard GS6. So we go from 2550 milliamp hours to 2550 milliamp hours in the Active. So that should give you 1 hour more in terms of on-screen time at maximum brightness. The other big difference here is waterproofing. Lost all waterproofing from the previous generation, but the Active returns it with an IP68 certification, which means dust and water resistant up to 1.5 meters and 30 minutes. It's also military standard 810G certified, which means
it's salt, dust, humidity, rain, vibration, solar radiation, transport, and thermal shock resistant.
Now in contract, the GS6 basically prices like the GS666, but off contract, it's $10 more than the standard GS6. It's also available in 3 Camo white, or just gray, which is a little simpler, more high-tech look, and that's the one I would personally prefer. Now, in terms of the design, it's very similar to the GS5. The corners are kind of knocked down, so it reduces the impact zone when you drop the phone. Corning Gorilla Glass 4 display, which provides some
Land table protection for the front glass.
Now the back panel is fixed this time, so it's not removable, so everything is basically sealed in, including the storage and the battery, so none of that can be swapped out this time.
But the great thing with
sealing it up
is that you have more room for the battery, and you no longer have any weak points for water to penetrate. So on the back, we have our 16 megapixel rear-facing camera, good for 4K video recording. We have our LED flash with our heart rate monitor right next to it. You can see in this case, it doesn't protrude like the standard Galaxy S666. In the hand, the edges are hard. Now on the front, toward the top, you'll find a 5 megapixel sensor and proximity sensor. Of course, you also have your earpiece, which again is water resistant. We also have an LED notification light. Down below, we'll find a
really big change here, which is also consistent with the previous Actives, which are physical, tactile buttons.
Which also removes the fingerprint sensor from the standard S666. Now, comparing both phones side by side, obviously there's a big difference in design and materials. There's also a difference in size. The GS666 Active is taller and wider. It's also noticeably thicker than the standard GS666. The other big difference is weight. So because we have a much larger battery, that's added about an ounce to the weight. So we're now at 5.9 ounces versus 4.
Now the screen
size is the same,
5.1
inches. The cameras
are the same and
in roughly the same
location.
The sensors have been moved around a bit. Down below, the big difference here obviously is the backlit capacitive controls have been replaced by physical buttons. You have a microphone. Now let's take a look at the user interface design and some of the tweaks for the S6 Active. So you can see the lock screen wallpaper here is consistent with that sort of outdoorsy nature theme of the Galaxy S666. You can see our home screens by pinching in and out. We can swipe to the right to see briefing. We can swipe down to see our drop-down notification shade and the quick setting toggles. Our app drawer with some pre-installed AT&T apps because this is an AT&T phone. But there are some tweaks here. So for example, if you go to the drop-down notification shade, you can see that we have Quick Connect and Quick Connect integrated into the quick setting toggles instead of dedicated buttons just below the shade. They've also tweaked the settings panel. So if you go to the settings panel, you can see it's kind of locked to this tab view. Now this
Race 4 och min race 4, race 6 is